Hello everybody, I'm Rusty. I want to welcome you to Island Breeze Tropicals. So today we're going to be asking a question, and that is, what is acclimation and what does it mean to our bromeliad? So you know what, the sun is shining, well kind of, it's on its way up and the island breeze is blowing. It's time that you and I got growing. Come on, let's have some fun, and why don't we learn about acclimation? So before we get going today, if this is your first time to the channel, welcome. It's great to have you with us. If you like what you see, do me a favor, hit that like button down there. And why don't you become a member of our Bromeliad family and become a subscriber? Thanks a lot. Now let's get to today's video. So last week we took a look at our bromeliads and we determined that it's not a great idea to take a bromeliad that's been growing under shade, like here in the shade house, and during your summer months when the sun is at its most intense, taking and putting it in full sun. Now, we're going to ask a question about acclimation, and I know you all have heard it, but acclimation isn't necessarily what we all think. So why don't we go up on the plant deck and take a look and see if we can figure out what acclimation really is and how that can help you with your bromeliads when you want to move them into more sun. Before we go up on the plant deck and talk about what acclimation really is, why don't we do a recap of what we had talked about last week. And basically that was to determine whether it's safe or not to take your full sun bromeliad out of a shade house like this, and you can see this is where we were last week, and take a look at all the shade cloth and take it from a bromeliad house like this and put it in an environment like this, which out there you can see there's some pine trees, but right in front of those pine trees there is absolutely no shade at all. So we talked about that last week and how that will probably cause burn to your bromeliad if you take it out of the shade house and it's during your most intense sun months and put it out there. So now why don't we go up on the plant deck and why don't we take a look and we'll see what acclimation really does mean. So okay, why don't we talk about what the term acclimation has always meant. And it's not entirely correct. When people talk about acclimating a plant, in this case our bromeliad, what it has meant is that we can take this bromeliad, say for instance out of a shade house like we were just in, and in a period of 2 to 3 weeks get it to accept a more harsh environment, yep, full sun, and everything will be okay. Unfortunately, acclimation doesn't really work that way, and I'm going to show you why. So, when we're growing our plants and we're growing them in a shade house, whether it's 30 or 50 or 70% shade, all of the leaves of this bromeliad, and this is a Neoregelia hybrid, and I do not have a name tag for it, but if this was grown in a shade house and I took and over a period of say days or maybe weeks just put it in a little bit more sun, a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. The old version of acclimation was that it would be sun hardy after that, and it doesn't work that way. And here's why. All of the leaves on this plant, I'm going to reach right on over there so you can see it. All of the leaves on this plant, once they are formed, they're formed, and it's not going to change. So all of the leaves on this plant that you see right here, except for a couple, all of those leaves, once they are made, and they will not change. Now the color can change, we've got a video about that, but that's a different mechanism. But if you take a look at all these leaves, see where there are some very long leaves there and some shorter leaves. We can't change that by acclimating using the old definition. The leaves will not change. So what that means is that once the bromeliad leaf, let's say this one right here, see that one? Once that bromeliad leaf has been formed, it can't change, and neither can its hardiness. Now remember, we're also talking about bromeliads that have got to have a predisposition for sun tolerance to begin with. So we can't acclimate a non-sun hardy bromeliad to be sun hardy. That's not what we're talking about. But we also can't acclimate a sun hardy bromeliad that has been growing under shade cloth or in some type of shade to full sun. At least not that way. Okay guys, so this is a bromeliad. I believe that this is a hybrid from the late Ray Coleman, who was a really great hybridizer here in Florida. Miss him. He had some really great hybrids. But I had this in some shade, and oh my gosh, let's take a look. Look at that right there. That is sun damage. And it happened because I moved it off of the plant deck and inadvertently put it over on the plant wall, and that's what happened. Now that happened within about 3 or 4 hours, and it also happened right down there. Okay, so that's sun damage. It's not real bad. The plant will recover, which is a good thing. But I immediately moved it into less sun exposure. So this leaf, you can see how long it is, and that's a really good indication that that particular leaf was grown in more shade. That's what happens to leaves. They get longer and they get really, really stretched. But none of these leaves can change their disposition. And all of these leaves will be only as sun tolerant as the condition under which they were grown. So why don't we go out into the tangle, and I'm going to show you another example, and I think it'll be really clear after I show you what I've done out there. So we're out here in the tangle, and I want to show you a really good example of how a plant cannot acclimate its already formed leaves from shade to sun. And after all, that's what we're talking about here. The fact that a leaf that is already formed can never acclimate itself to more sun by gradually introducing it. And what I'll do is I'll explain what I did on these plants. So what we're looking at right here is a Neoregelia tiger. Doesn't look much like a tiger, does it? Nope, it got really, really bleached. Now this one particular Neoregelia tiger, as a matter of fact, it's in a bed with about 3 or 4 others. And it was in the shade house. You might remember that we had a hurricane here, and I started planting things in the shade house that got kind of torn up. And this plant, believe it or not, was planted in December or January. So that's January of 2023. And take a look at the bleaching on this. See that yellow color? Look at some of those older leaves. So here's what happened. As the sun got stronger and stronger, and I have less canopy because of the hurricane, all of those old leaves were grown under 50% shade cloth. They cannot change, and they were burned and bleached, and it doesn't make any difference whether it was gradual or not, and it was. Remember, I put this plant out around January of this year, and as soon as our solstice started getting close, it started getting bleached. But look at this new leaf, and this new leaf has been growing since that time, and that is what real acclimation is. If you have a full sun-rated bromeliad and it's been grown in shade, all of the new leaves will acclimate to the condition under which it has been placed. And this leaf has been in full blazing sun at least 8 hours a day. And take a look, it has banding. Look, the other ones do not, right? And take a look, it has banding and it has acclimated. And this is a pup from the same plant. And yes, it may be a little bit protected by the adult, but take a look, all of those new leaves there, they have the characteristic banding, they are not bleached. So that pup was very, very small, and I'm going to show you something really, really cool. Take a look, see that old leaf on the pup? Now take a look at the length of that leaf right there. I'm going to come on back, and then take a look at the rest of the leaves and see how much longer that is, and see how those are shorter. That indicates that that one leaf was grown in a lot of shade, and these leaves are growing in more sun, and that's what acclimation is. As each new leaf on your bromeliad forms, then it will become more and more hardy if you are growing it in sun. So, okay guys, that's it. I hope you enjoyed learning about what acclimation really means to your bromeliads and how that can really help you if you want to take a bromeliad that's grown under more shade and moving it into more sun. It's more a question of the time of year than it is anything else. But once you know that, you can buy your bromeliads and make sure that they never get burned by sun. Now, one more thing that we do want to stress one more time is that if your bromeliad is not genetically predisposed to taking sun, then it won't do it, no matter how much acclimation. So what we were talking about, again, is your bromeliad has to be a full sun bromeliad, and then it can be acclimated. So no matter where you are, I hope your sun is shining. I hope you have an island breeze blowing. I know that you and I need to keep growing and have lots of fun. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time. So guys, thanks for sticking around. I have a special announcement. Now, some of you may know that I have a jungle here in Southwest Florida that's called the Tangle. Now, the Tangle is full of uncommon and rare palms and aeroids and orchids and, yes, bromeliads. And we haven't taken a tour of the Tangle in quite a long time. So what I want to start is a special segment every once in a while, not every week, but every once in a while on a Tuesday, we're going to have something called Tangle Tuesday. And that's where I'm going to take you out into the Tangle and show you bromeliads, but how well they also grow with all sorts of different plants. And hopefully it will inspire you to do the same thing, whether you live in the temperate, subtropic, or tropics, even if it's for only your summer months. Now, we aren't going to change our regular Friday get-together. That's always been bromeliads, and it's going to stay that way. But every once in a while, not every Tuesday, but I don't know, who knows, maybe it'll be once a month, maybe every other, maybe we'll just do it randomly. We're going to have Tangle Tuesday, and I would love for you to come on a tour with me. So I hope you'll stay tuned and watch for Tangle Tuesdays.